Welcome to the Poetry of J.P., where we dive deep into the art and craft of poetry, exploring the building blocks that make poems resonate with readers. I am your host, J.P., and today we're starting our journey with the evolution of the poetic line. In the world of poetry, the poetic line is everything. It's where the rhythm, meaning, and emotion converge to create something truly powerful. But how did we get here? How did we move from the strict metrical verses of the past to the free-flowing lines that characterize contemporary poetry today? From meter to free verse. Let's start with a bit of history. Traditional poetry was once all about meter and rhyme. Think of Shakespeare, whose iambic pentameter gave his lines a rhythm that's almost like a heartbeat. Here's an example from Sonnet 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Each line is like a musical phrase, meticulously crafted to follow a specific pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables. Iambic pentameter is a type of poetic meter that consists of 5 pairs of syllables, or feet, where each foot follows an unstressed, stressed pattern. In each line of iambic pentameter, there are 10 syllables in total, alternating between weak and strong beats. For example, in the lines, Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. The pattern becomes epic. The rhythm created by this pattern gives the verse a musical quality used by Shakespeare and other poets of the day. This strict adherence to meter gave poetry a sense of order and musicality that was deeply ingrained in the literary tradition. But as we moved into the 20th century, something interesting happened. The world was changing rapidly. Industrialization, wars, and social upheaval were transforming every aspect of life. Poets began to feel that the old forms were no longer adequate to express the complexities and chaos of the modern world. This led to the embrace of free verse, where lines were no longer bound by traditional meter and rhyme. Instead, they were driven by the natural rhythms of speech and the poet's own intent. To truly appreciate this shift, it's important to understand the broader historical context. The early 20th century, marked by the upheavals of World War I and the rise of modernism, saw artists in all fields, literature, visual arts, music, breaking away from traditional forms. In literature, figures like T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and William Carlos Williams were at the forefront of this revolution. These poets believed that the strict metrical forms of the past no longer suited the modern world's fragmented and often disjointed reality. For instance, the horrors of World War I brought a level of disillusionment that the old poetic forms couldn't adequately convey. Free verse allowed poets to express these new realities in ways that felt more immediate and relevant. The poetic line evolved from a mere structural element into a dynamic tool for conveying the chaotic and contradictory nature of modern life. This historical backdrop is crucial for understanding why the poetic line is becoming so central to contemporary poetry. Case studies and line breaks. Now that we've set the stage, let's look at some examples of how poets use the line in free verse. Consider the poem The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. It's a short poem, just 16 words long, but every word, every line break is carefully chosen to create a specific rhythm and meaning. Poetry is both meant to be read aloud and visually read off of a page. So please observe the slides that I have provided in the video above. Here are a few brief lines from the poem. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rain water beside the white chickens. Each line break here does something crucial. It forces you to pause, to focus on each image, The simplicity of the language is deceptive because the line breaks give weight to each word, each image, making you consider them in isolation and then together. Pause the video here and take a few minutes to read these lines from the poem and notice how the line breaks affect the meaning and how you perceive them. Let's dive deeper. One interpretation is that the line breaks mirror the visual fragmentation of the images he's describing. The wheelbarrow, the rain, the chickens, each of these elements is isolated by the line breaks, forcing the reader to consider them individually before putting them together into a coherent whole. This technique not only emphasizes the importance of each element, but also mirrors the fragmented nature of modern life. Now let's compare this with Ezra Pound's In a Station of the Metro. The entire poem is just 2 lines. The apparition of these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet black bough. The line break here is subtle, but it's powerful. The first line sets up an image of faces in a crowd, and then the second line shifts the meaning by comparing those faces to petals on a wet black bough. That shift wouldn't be nearly as impactful without the break, which gives you just a moment to process the first image before introducing the second image. Notice how Pound uses the line break to create a moment of suspension, a pause that heightens the reader's awareness of the shift from one image to another. This technique plays with the reader's perception, making the poem not just a reflection on modern urban life, but also a commentary on the nature of perception itself. Before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with something to ponder. Think about the poems you love. How do the poets use line breaks? Do they use them to isolate images, to create rhythm, or to shift meaning? Maybe the next time you read a poem, take a moment to really consider how the line breaks are functioning. And if you're writing your own poetry, experiment with your line breaks. Try writing a simple sentence and breaking it in different ways. Notice how the meaning or rhythm changes. Share your thoughts with us. How do these techniques impact your understanding and creation of poetry? So as you can see, even in free verse, the poetic line is far from arbitrary. It's a deliberate choice that shapes the poem's rhythm, meaning, and impact. Understanding the evolution of the poetic line gives us a deeper appreciation of how contemporary poets use this powerful tool. In our next episode, we'll dig deeper into how these poets use the mechanics of the poetic line to create such powerful effects. Stay with us, because this journey is just beginning. Thanks for listening to the Poetry of J.P. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. See you next time as we explore the mechanics of the poetic line.